Continuing our look now at the best in children's television. This morning, the new kid, or dinosaur on the block.
On the big purple reptile that kids can't resist.
The big purple dinosaur.
Dinosaur.
Teaches about love, and it just kind of like soothes the kids.
And always, there's that signature song.
Welcome to Purple Tales Podcast with your host, Carrie Barney Stinson. How are you?
I'm wonderful, Nancy. How are you?
I am fine, thank you, and I am your co-host.
Absolutely.
Nancy J. So good to be here. I saw Endgame.
Okay.
I thought you'd want to know about the Avengers thing.
Yes.
And you know what?
I know it's been a big...
It has been a big thing, but you know, it's interesting because people are so passionate about that movie and about that whole genre.
Yes.
And that I'm like, well, wait a minute. People are just as passionate about Barney. So
Yes.
you had no idea I was going to be able to bring it right back.
That was very impressive.
Well, but it's true.
Yes.
No, it's true. I love this passion that people have for something. I think that makes lives better.
It's so much fun. I did my first talk this week. I did a big speech this week on Barney, on the power of love, on podcasting Purple Tales. And when we were waiting to start, and a lady walked in, she goes, "Oh my God, it's you! You're right here." I was like, "Yes, yeah, I'm right here." But it is funny, the reactions that people have, and of course with me, they're trying to figure out the big purple. They're looking at me and they're trying to figure out how all that worked.
Well, it's amazing how you've blossomed, Carrie, since I've known you just in the last couple of months. Everyone else knew you as Carrie and as the dinosaur, but so many people only didn't really know that you were inside that suit. And,
Right.
and hearing you talk about it, I see your passion for it.
Well, thank you. And I had no idea the reaction that would happen. And hearing people responding to the message of love and accepting and all the things that were so passionate to me for all these years, and everyone involved with Barney that we've been talking about, it's just so exciting to see people realizing they wanted that message and hearing that message and seeing that we always felt that way.
And you keep talking to kids groups or doing some things, and these little kids know the Barney songs or sing them, and you promise they don't know who you are?
They have no idea I'm in
know.
there. No idea. And I hear it all the time. Clean up. And I just start laughing. I just smile.
Do you tell them who you are then?
I don't.
Oh.
Well, to kids. I'm not going to tell to kids.
Oh, well, they can't. Of course. See, now there you go again.
Not to kids.
That's what you hold so dear, is that whole imagination.
The Barney magic.
Wow. Okay. Speaking of Barney magic,
All right.
This is kind of fun. Got a really, really, really nice note from Hope Lamond. And she said, "Oh, Hope, congratulations. She's 21 and just graduated from college. Community
Congratulations.
college. Yes, good. She says she loves the quirks of production and that she's actually works as an associate producer on a show that airs on Facebook. Cool. And she said she still watches her Barney VH tapes with her two cats. And
awesome.
when she's home alone, so that,
Yep.
I guess even as a grown-up, you kind of have to be careful how much Barney you watch.
Right.
But she did say something about, and I don't want to catch you off guard on this, Carrie, but she said, "I must confess the earlier Stay Tuned screens still scare her." And she says, "Ha ha, sorry, Patty." Do you remember what those were?
A little bit of that.
Just a Stay Tuned?
Yeah,
that was,
with a Stay Tuned,
but it was kind of scary?
Yeah, well, and they made adjustments over the years.
Okay.
Even Barney, if you see the original Barney, they softened him. They softened him a lot.
The voice has changed,
The voice
too?
changed,
Yep.
absolutely.
Okay. Well, she also, she's actually written a couple of times, and she did say that she has all the classic collection tapes and that she's good friends with Erica Rhodes, and apparently Erica was one of the kids.
Yes.
And you remember her.
Absolutely.
Well, and Hope is saying, she keeps telling her, "Dude, you should go on Purple Tales podcast. You need to tell your story." So maybe we'll have her, but this is nice.
Well, everyone
wants to be on now.
And they're all welcome.
Well, of
they're
course.
all welcome and excited to have them all
Well, no
on.
wonder you're going crazy, because all these people now are calling you. And
Well, I had a long talk yesterday on the phone with Bob West. I haven't talked to Bob West.
was it like listening to yourself in your suit?
It was crazy, because I haven't talked to him in forever. And it was like I talked to him yesterday. The connection is, all of us were just such a family.
Yeah.
That
And he's going to be on.
He's going to be on, yeah. In a few weeks.
Oh my gosh.
In a few weeks.
Well, this is what Hope went on to say. I'm in a Barney fan club on Facebook full of
great.
adult Barney fans. They share the podcast every week,
Love it.
Purple Tales podcast, when it airs on Tuesday.
Thank you.
So they're listening to us right now.
We love it.
She says she discovered our guys through that Barney community.
great.
And so thank all of you
Thank
for
you, thank
finding
you.
us.
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. So, when I'm watching these shows now
Right.
and listening to everybody's stories,
Right.
it was fun when we had Jackie on as the publicist for
Yes.
Barney and how she was able to maneuver that side of it. But on the set,
Yeah.
there had to be so much going on. We've heard about your tail going crazy and the kids, people doing all sorts of different things. Was the director in charge, or how did that all work?
Yeah, the directors and producers, absolutely. There was several teams that were preparing each episode.
Okay.
And so you would go in, and the director would be such an important aspect of maneuvering me through the sets and cameras and all the creative ideas and all of that. And of course, that's a great lead into who we have today.
Who do we have today?
We have Brian Mack Daddy. That's the way I know him.
Mack Daddy.
Brian Mack.
Welcome.
Thank you. The ADs, the associate
And the
directors.
associate directors, who, by the way, Brian did that as well.
Yeah, that's where I started.
Yes.
They're the ones that, the directors are important. We all know that. But
Yes.
It's the ADs that really go in, and they're the ones who do all the scheduling and organizing and, keep everybody straight, the departments.
Yes.
Well, I can't wait to hear more about that. And it's basically because you're in charge and you have to be part of the team. I mean, that's
Right.
So
bet.
there's a lot of stuff going on there.
When everything goes wrong, it's the AD
There you
that
go.
takes the hit.
What led you to Barney?
Well, that's a long story.
There's not a time limit
got
here,
all
so
the
you're all
time
good.
in the
Yeah,
world.
you're good, Brian.
Well, I started in the film business early on, right out of college. And that's when I came here in 88.
Here
And,
being Dallas.
Being Dallas.
Okay.
And was going to give the film, the whole thing, give it a shot, see where it took me. So I ended up out at the studios of Las Colinas. We all know that.
Yeah, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. That's
Barney
the
ended
biggest,
up-
Yeah. At one point, Barney was there.
Barney was
And
there.
at one point, when Barney was there, Dallas was considered the third coast.
Right.
Back
Right.
then.
Oh, yeah.
Not so much anymore, but that's okay because we don't have Barney out there shooting.
Yeah. But so it was also a favorite place, for instance, of Eric Clapton to come in. And he has been in here numerous years, and he goes out and sets up and he plays and he practices before he takes his big world tours. And that's what had happened then. So that was my first introduction into, the film world.
You're out of college and you get a job with Eric Clapton?
First, right off the bat. And so I hung out with him for 2 weeks. And the way that happened is the roadies all came in and they needed some, cables repaired and some equipment and this and that. So I was helping them out and running errands. And then the band came in and they shut the doors and they nobody in, crew only. And then they looked and they're like, come on in. Graham took me under his wing. He's like, you're one of us. So I went in and hung out with
who's
them.
Graham?
Graham is one of the roadies. He was worked directly with Eric. And so
Eric, first
Eric
name.
Clapton.
Yes.
I mean,
well, it was interesting because I found myself sitting down and Eric would come over numerous times throughout the day and just kind of chat with me. He knew everybody else. That was his traveling crew, but he would come over and we would chat. And of
was
course,
he really a slow hand?
he was, he was, no. And he did. He asked me, he's like, so you play guitar? And I was like, no. I gave it an attempt when I was 10, but that's about as far as it went.
Okay.
But anyway, so from there, ended up out behind, out on the bus, partying with them after the concert. And I was with my girlfriend / now wife, Catherine. I was introducing her to all kinds of interesting people. But they offered me to go on tour with them. And they said, we got a bed on the bus, help set up, tear down. You got all the food you want, but we can't pay you. And I was like, there's always something. So I said, no, I had to. So 3 months later, Born on the 4th of July. And that's where I was on the set.
The Oliver Stone movie that was shot.
Oliver Stone.
Yeah,
Yep.
here. A lot of it was done here.
Yeah. So I tried to get on that as a PA and ended up as craft service assistant.
Interesting how you kind of go through the back door to get onto these sets.
Well, it is. And if you talk to any director, you're going to get a different story. Everybody's got their different story as to how they got into this business. Yeah.
I was a busboy. That's how I got started at Chili's. So,
But on all of these movies.
Stories.
Yeah. On all of these movies, it was all Dallas crew. And that's where, then after Born on the 4th, it was Problem Child, Necessary Roughness, Hexed. Back then, there were a lot of films that were coming through. And then Walker, Texas Ranger.
Years and years.
A lot of those people were part of Barney, too.
Yep, 13 East. We did Delta Crash 191. If you remember that. Were you?
No.
So you were on Problem Child.
Walker, Texas Ranger.
You were Walker,
I played
Texas
a reporter.
All right.
It was a stretch. No, but what's interesting is, though, you had all of this amazing film experience and working with these great big names.
And when we weren't working films, then we were all working commercials. So we went and moved on to commercials, and the film stopped coming around. Well, there's some long format projects from time to time, but it was the commercial. So you really became family. So a lot of the Barney people, the crew, I knew them way before Barney ever even came about. I didn't know Carrie.
Because I was on the road.
Okay.
Yeah, I was on the road.
But the grip, electrics, wardrobe, all of them.
Some of the roadies, too, that you've told me about. I don't know if those were...
Yeah, no, we didn't mix.
Okay, different.
Yeah, the road crew and the production, what we were doing really didn't mix unless they came in and they were doing rehearsals down the hall.
The tour then went back out.
Okay.
With a different different actor playing Barney when I switched, but it kept rolling.
Well, so with that kind of a background, and where you Eric Clapton, him by his first name, and you worked with Oliver Stone,
Tom Cruise, Kara Sedgwick.
Well, so
all of those.
So
it was a lot of fun, and it was tough to all of a sudden. One day, I started to get calls from the producers of Barney.
Now, how did you get those calls?
Well, I had known the producers. I had known them, and they were looking for a new associate director to come on board. And they just kept on asking me. And it took me 3 months to finally say yes.
But you were wanted, which had to be nice.
I was wanted. It was nice to be wanted. Came in for a few meetings and was chatting with them. But here's the thing. Barney, look, we didn't know. Barney was huge. It was big. But it was asking a whole lot from me as a director to give up that whole commercial world and all of that. But, in talking with them, I finally came around. And, all of us on the outside of Barney, we didn't know what was going on the sets. It was just it was all closed doors, and we knew it was on PBS, and we saw it on PBS. And I knew a lot of the people on there. But anyway, so I finally said yes. I said, all right, let's do this. But I said, I want to direct. I'm not here to so much associate direct, because that was my ambition, was to direct.
But you were hired on as an associate.
As an associate director.
Okay.
And I was politely told time and time again that, no, you're new. You're part of the family, but you're new. There's seniority. This is, there are other people that have been here long before you.
So what were your duties as associate director?
So associate director, what we do is come in and we were given the scripts. And we'd be given, the originals, the script. Everybody, all the department heads, we all get the script. So you know what's going on. You know what's going to be asked. And then they would change it, and they would go through their script revisions. And so you'd get a different color. And it might be a little change.
We've heard about the different colors.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. And so what we did as an associate director, we started to break it down scene by scene. And then you go to the department heads and you figure out, are we going to start in the caboose? Are we going to start out in the park? And there are various reasons as to why you can't start in the park, because maybe Bob LaValle and his crew, they're building something big, and they need that time. So you start in the caboose. So
Bob LaValle, set designer. And he's going to be on in a couple of weeks.
Okay,
right.
good.
Or it might be, lighting, and the lighting department needs extra days because they're just coming off of the other show. And so they need that time to start prepping for this new one. And maybe it's a big birthday party in the caboose, and they need the caboose first. So they'll dress that all out, so we'll start out there. So there are a lot of variables that just kind of play into it. And what you do is you start, and then the props and everything that goes into the show, every detail is a meeting.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
They do. Oh, yeah. They like to just meet everything to death.
Well, I had all those too.
Yeah.
Can you hold this prop? We're building something. Will you be able to do this? Or can you?
Oh, yeah.
Even like the jump rope and all of that
But you never knew.
stuff.
I mean, you're dealing with these costumes.
Right.
So that had to be difficult.
Oh, yeah.
at
You can't
times.
assume that any of the dinos.
And kids.
And the kids.
Right.
Well, you're right, because some of those kids had to go through a teaching lesson, you know?
Ooh, like what?
Hopscotch, jumping a rope, you know? It's not, you can't assume that every kid walking into that door knows how to dribble a ball.
Huh.
So you kind of like, all right, Billy, you can't dribble, So you give it over here.
Because we've talked about
just
this.
Change it up.
There's such a time limit on, 2.5 days, and you got dinos in hot costumes. You can't wait for a kid to learn how to dribble a ball or something. Like you
can't do it on the set.
Yeah.
And you got to figure that out in the rehearsals. And sometimes you just got to run with it. You change it. You give that action to another kid.
Oh.
Yeah.
That could be cruel.
Oh, I think the kid understands.
I don't want to dribble. I don't want to dribble the ball. Well, so as AD then, what is your favorite moment that you can remember? Or
Just
what
getting out on the
crazy,
set.
Yeah?
Everything leading up to it is just, it's hard work. It's hard work because people are coming in and they're wanting to change everything that you've done. And their department is more important than other people's. So they come in and they're just, hey, I need to change this. Well, you change that and it affects this. It affects that, And maybe, it's like, no, we can't do that way because Bob and his team, they need a little bit more time to build, and those props. I mean, when you talk to, Bob LaValle, oh my God. Well, the one scene that needed a hot air balloon.
Yeah.
So the basket, you can't just go out and call some hot air balloon guy and say, can we borrow your basket? Even if he said yes, Barney doesn't fit in it. And you've got to have kids. So you've got to build this massive basket that's probably about half the size of this room. It's huge. So Barney can fit in there and a dino and a couple of kids and go for a balloon ride. So it all needs to be manufactured.
I don't think that those who are fans watching the shows have had or have, even still, any idea of what all goes into this.
You bet. And you can't fly a kite. You can't just, so there are plenty of times, let's fly a kite.
Yep.
But so what they've done, and it was ingenious, I've got one. It's a handle, and they've got this rod, this stiff rod, and it goes up to this kite about 3 or 4 feet up. And kids will walk around, and it looks like they're flying a kite. But you've got to overcome those things.
Right.
And maybe other times they did have a string, but the string was, up there and somebody with a pulley, and they'd pull it out of BJ's hand, and he would chase after it. But, those kind of things. But overall, you had a ceiling. You're out in the park, but there's a ceiling up there, and it's all full of lights and, and stage parts.
So now, did you know Carrie once you became the director?
I knew we became friends right off the bat. When I started my first day, they walked me down the hall and they introduced me to, the dinos. And because we were going to be working as a team.
Yeah.
I mean, the kids kind of come and go and this and that, but that's your team out there. And you got to get to know them. And they, not so much.
With Dean, too.
Yeah, and Dean and the voices. And it wasn't so much, Carrie, but BJ came up to me the first day. We were out on the sets, and he came up and he's like, Mac, high five. And he went, and I gave him a high five. And it just went splat. And there was just water everywhere. And I realized that is how much they sweat in those suits.
Oh, my gosh.
So,
they were
I'm
glad
talking
you're
about
bringing that up because
well,
the AD, whoever the AD was, is the one we would go to. Hey, I got 3 more takes and I'm done, or I've got 15 more minutes and then I've got to take a break, or I've got to get water, or I've got to get to.
Right.
The AD was the one every episode that you relied on.
Because the director, he's so engrossed in what's going
Yes.
on and the next take and what was wrong with that one and the timing and trying to fix those things on his end. What I'm doing is it's the operations. It's the different departments are coming to me saying, hey, I need 5 minutes. I need a minute. Hey, don't go just yet. And
and it would be that negotiation. Can you give me 2 more takes, or can you give me,
right,
if we can just get here.
Right, and then it's also, reading these guys, because there's not always time to run out there and it's like, all right, show of hands, who's okay,
Right.
But looking at Carrie, because the little dinos, here's the thing about the little dinos. those suits, and they didn't really mention it. I listened. Their suits were like gloves. So literally, they were zipped into that thing, and it is carpet. It is this thick carpet, and so when they're sweating, their shoes, their feet are wet, their hands. I mean, they would go, and if they did that on the floor, I mean, it was a string of water. It was just sweat. Now Barney,
We know Barney had
he had fans.
fan. We
Yeah,
do
I think
know about
BJ.
that.
Did those guys have?
Yeah, but you gotta remember,
It probably doesn't
But
matter.
it didn't matter. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they,
Well, for them, it might cool off their head, but their body just.
no, but for none of us, mine too. It didn't cool anything
Yeah.
off. It's competing with so much heat. I think it made the
And-
producers and everyone feel better when they'd hear them, but
Yeah.
they didn't do any good.
But there's no venting, and then of course,
Yeah, I mean, there's
Carrie's
no-
doing 360s, and there are times when, some of those directors would do, 12,
Yeah.
15
Takes?
takes, and you're doing a 360 in each one.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I'd work with Fred. Fred was, oh my gosh, wait till you get Fred in here. Fred was great. Fred and I just clicked.
Fred
He was one
Holmes.
of the directors. So Fred, we'd work together on what was going on, and I'd sit there and be like, all right, Fred, we got this with Barney, with this 360. So I'd say, Carrie, no more 360s, and we just shoot the scene. They would always in the show they'd cut that 360 from the other takes.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's.
But you had to really trust each other.
Oh,
You had to
absolutely.
depend on him, and you
Absolutely.
had to depend on him to do it right.
You had to depend on him, and we're always looking out for each other. But for instance, when if one of the dinos went down, well, you had to keep going. The show
That doesn't sound good.
It doesn't, and it would happen from time to time.
Now, when you describe went down.
went down, took a spill. They
Okay.
might misstep going downstairs, or they might step on a kid's toes. Because the kids, look, their job was hard enough, memorizing all these lines and where to go and everything. But to be working around the dinos, who's, their view, they've got side blinders on.
And you go 100%. You don't think I could fall. You just 100%.
Yep.
And if you fall, you fall. If you
So we're all watching different parts of the set, and all of a sudden somebody yelled, "Dino down!" It's like, who's down? And you look out there and you count the heads. So,
and then like we talked about before, you have to get all the extras off the set.
yeah.
Oh,
Well, you want to preserve the Barney magic. So you don't want, and then also, if Barney was down, it's just, it's kind of like, all right, kids, let's go take a kid break. And so we'll shuffle them out, and, the rest of the crew. And we always have a medic on set, and the medic will go out there.
And they'll ask before they touch us, "Are you okay? Should we pull
Sure.
you up?
Oh,
Are
my
you,
gosh.
What's going on?"
Well, because,
I could knock
you
myself
in
out.
particular,
Yeah.
you can't, well, let's face it, Barney.
Yeah, there was a
But
couple.
not a lot of
there,
arm movement.
there-
No.
there was
You
a
can't
couple-
catch yourself.
couple trips to the.
And then the head
ER.
hits, and he's in there, and you got that bite bar, and I'm sure you're getting that bite bar out of your mouth before you.
Yeah.
Wait, you said a
hit.
couple of trips to the ER?
Yeah.
You did?
Oh yeah.
Can any permanent damage, Carrie?
You-
No, what a stupid question. Okay.
exactly.
But when that happened, and he's off in the ER, everybody's looking at me saying, "Hey, what are we going to do?" Well, you got to go. You got to go. And some people are coming out. Are you not concerned about Carrie? He's like, I'm absolutely concerned about Carrie, but I can't find anything out at the moment, and we have all this shooting to do. So now what you do is you sit down with the director and you start going over what can we shoot without Barney. Because you are on a time crunch. There is no, let's just come back and we'll do it another day. There is no other day. Your schedules are full. Everybody's, this is when it's scheduled to happen.
And they just tell me, "Come back with a note."
Yeah.
And I'd always come back with a note.
right. Come back with a note.
You actually had to have a
Absolutely,
note.
I did from the
doctor.
Absolutely, I did.
But the one time I was, I put it in the works to get somebody else in to do Barney. Now, the Barney people.
Did you know this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Maybe you
But
didn't
I don't
know
think
this.
it
Okay.
happened.
Okay.
No, it didn't.
Yeah.
But Mark came up, and some of those, the Barney department, and they were just, "Hey, if we do this, we're changing everything in the suit to fit this guy. Do you want to do this?"
Because they're not the same height.
They're not the same height, and they're going to make these adjustments, and it's going to take time. And I thought, well, yeah, we have to. We've got to go down that road. So they started to make the adjustments, and then finally we heard Carrie's coming back. So then they adjusted it back. But you have to run. You have to go, as hard as it is.
It sounds like, though, your experience as an AD would have put you in good stead to become a director.
You would think.
Oh?
No. So, so where that finally came into play and helped me was Karen Barnes came in. She was from L.A., and she came in and took over the helm
As
Executive producer.
producer.
Okay.
She was top dog.
Yep.
So she came in, and Fred and I just clicked. We just enjoyed working with each other. And Fred, I was sitting at lunch one day, and everybody, I think just about everybody knew, my whole take on what I was wanting to do. But anyway, Fred, I was sitting there eating lunch, and he comes walking by, and he says, "Drop everything, come with me." I was like, so we're walking down the hall. I said, "Where are we going?" He says, "Karen's office." I was like, "All right, what's this about?" And he says, "When I look at you, that's your cue." I was like, "Great. What are we talking about?" And he says, you'll find out. So we walk into Karen's office, and Karen's like, "Mr. Mack, what a pleasure to meet you. See you again."
This is how you met her?
This isn't how I met her.
Okay.
She knew me. I knew her. It was just, she's like, good to see you for the day. And so Fred comes in. She says, Fred comes in and says, "Look, Mack and I work really, really well together. When I'm doing a show, I would really appreciate it if you put him and pair him up with me as associate director." She's like, "Well, Brian, this, that." So he says, "Well, Fred, I wanted to talk with you about, we need another director. Do you have any connections out in LA, this and that?" And Fred just looked right at me. I was like, "Oh." I was like, "Well, Karen," I said, "I direct." And she's like, "I've heard that." And she says, "Do you have a reel?" And I said, "Absolutely. I will get it to your hands." And then Fred said, "Look, he knows the crew. He works with me. He knows the scripts. He knows the process. Everybody knows him. He could take my show today and direct it right now. Why don't you just, she's like, "Well, I'll take it into consideration." So there were a number of people that were always telling me, and look, they were the original Barney family from the very beginning. And, there was that whole seniority, and I get it.
And it was a preservation. They want to make sure everything stays.
You bet. And I was trying not
in
to
the
step
same.
on anybody's toes, but at the same time, it was just, I was in the right place at the right time. Thank you, Fred. So all of a sudden, I was out in L.A., and I was doing a lot of work out in L.A. and traveling out there. And I get a call, and somebody said, "Brian, this is where I'm supposed to ask you. Would you like to direct an episode?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So I came back. I get my script, and I meet up with Fred. He comes over, and he says, "So you got your script?" And he's like, "Congratulations, this is awesome." He says, "You got your script?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "What do you think about it?" And I said, "Wow, it needs a lot of work." Uh-huh. And anyway, so he says, "So, what are you going to do about it? This and that." I said, "Look, Fred, it doesn't need to be the best show." I said, "It just doesn't need to be the worst." And he says, "You're going to do just fine." So that's where I got to work. But my approach to directing my show was very much like I AD a show. So I would come in, and literally when they assigned me an assistant director, I had it all done. And the producers were like, "Brian, that's his job. Why don't you let him do it?" I said, "It's just ingrained in me. This is how I prep for a show. This is how I figure out all my details and, where I'm going to shoot what, in chronological order or however we're going to end up doing it." And so my notes were always very detailed on the script. And as a matter of fact, if something needed changing at the last minute, because sometimes we'd be out on a set and we would, be doing a shoot and something would change from the rehearsal, and we would change it up. Well, it would affect like 3 or 4 different things. There's this domino effect. And you had to be able to fix it then. There is no, "Hey, can we take another kid break? And let me think about this." No, it was fix it now and let's get going. So you had to reassign camera numbers and shots to the camera guys so that they knew who to shoot and what was going on. And you needed to just go. And so that's how I prepped. And as a matter of fact, all my ADing, by watching and working with all the directors and then going into the edit, that really helped me, I feel. Now, it's not that the other directors were doing it wrong. It's just helped me choose the way that I was going to direct.
No, because they all had different styles.
They did.
They all had. So we knew that when we were getting scripts, we were like, "Oh, we're in for this," or "This is going to be," because they all had different styles, and we got to know them after a while.
The good, the bad, the ugly.
Right.
And yet
So we
you were-
saw
you-
the name.
But you needed to keep it this kind of to look the same, right?
But the styles were different.
Yeah, the styles were
Okay.
different, an approach, and that's where Fred and I just clicked. Because Fred and I came from the world of film, and so we just kind of we approached each scene, and he'd be like, it'd be really cool this, and I'd be like, yeah, this would be neat too. And so we kind of played off each other, and Fred just had some fabulous ideas, of which sometimes I'd have to go to war for that, because his ideas sounded like they were rather grandiose and they were going to take a lot of time to shoot, and sometimes they did. But then we would sit back and I'd like, all right, so Fred, this is where we got to kind of compromise in regards to staying on time. And so I would have to go back.
Sorry, when you would do it. If it was in the morning, some of these big ideas in the late afternoon wasn't the greatest idea in the world. And there were a few times, especially with the Fred episode, where we gave him 2 takes, and he's like, I need one more. And they're like, yeah, the dinos are gone. We just,
Those guys would run out the door.
We're gone. Yeah. We would do everything we could, but physically, they would push us to the point where, like, yeah, physically, we just can't.
So
go
what
anymore.
was your first episode to direct? Do you remember?
Was it the tooth? Yeah.
I think it was,
something,
yeah.
whatever the tooth one was.
Yeah. And for us, we felt good about Brian because we knew he had the AD. So he knew both aspects of it. So I didn't have to go the 18 deal. I could just go to him and go, yeah, you're getting 2 more takes or whatever. Whatever
But
it may be.
here's also what I did. In knowing that, some of these other directors, and sometimes you guys did 14, 15, 16 takes, what they were doing was, you had the sequence of, just the scenes where it would just go, right? So the scene might play out for a minute or 2 minutes with the kids and the dinos and the song and all these different elements. Well, these directors, some of them would just go and they're like, I didn't quite get that. I need to do it again. I need to do it again because that messed up. And what they were trying to do is get that perfect take. Well, one day I was sitting in there and I was going to be directing. And so I knew my show was coming up. So I went into the edit and I went on Fred's show.
And this was all on film.
Well, we were taping.
Tape.
But yeah. Okay. So they were doing the edit, and I went in and I said, pull up this one take. And she was already in the middle of editing the show. And I said, here, show up this one scene, right? And give me that one take. Show me it. And it looked like a strand of DNA. This perfect take that this director had just worked so hard to get went into the edit system and was just chopped up. It was butchered. So I thought, why are we even trying to get a good take? Why even try for that? So when I set up, and I had a conversation with Connie, the script supervisor, and I told her what I was going to do, and I also went to one of the editor who I knew who my editor was going to be, and I told her what I was going to do. So I get out on the show, and I'm on the floor, and I give all the camera guys their shots, and so here we are. We're going to start running the rehearsal, and the producer looked over at me and says, Brian, says, what's the name of the show? And I said, Barney and Friends. He's like, why are these your camera shots? And I said, yeah. Why do I not see Barney? And I said, because I'm not shooting him right now. And I told Carrie, so Carrie wasn't going to be doing his 360s. He was saving them. Yeah. And what I would do is get the kids. The kids were fresh. That's when they're fresh, is at the beginning. So what I would do is work with, so what I did was, look, we had 4 cameras. And the way all the directors do it is you've got your 4 pedestal cameras.
Yep.
And then you have your cam mate.
Your boom.
Your boom. And that boom basically stays high and wide, and that's what he does. He just gets your wide
the whole,
shot.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
So he sits there and twiddles his thumbs most of the time. He would hate when I
Well,
think.
wait till we have the boom operator
When
on.
Van comes
Great, Brian.
His name is Van.
Okay.
David Van.
Easiest job in the world.
Yeah, we're going to bring back some audio for him to listen to.
No, but what he appreciates. So what I did was I said, Van, so you're getting down. And so what I did was I put all the cameras on the kids, right? And then what I had was I would shoot out the scene doing that, and then I'd switch it up. I was like, all right, I got that. And when a kid messed his line up or something, I'd say, stop, let's go and pick it up, And we would roll back, and I'd take it from that line from before that was messed up, and then we'd go in, and it was, Jamal.
Well, you actually brought some things
I did.
here.
I brought a script.
You got a whole big script folder. Is that one script?
No, it's very
Okay,
scripts.
good.
But so So then what I did was I would shoot that scene out with those. When I got what I needed out of the kids, then I'd switch those cameras up and I would go to now your B position for the same scene.
Okay.
And now let's shoot. And now it's Barney and I get my wide shot and your master and everything else. And the thing that helped with that is sometimes when you're doing a scene, you're going to change a few things up just because the way the kids are doing it, and there might be something, and so you change a little bit. And so anyway.
So you have to be
So
flexible.
you want to get your master.
Right.
So your master off of the wide that you always can cut to, I kind of favor that going towards the end because now the kids are in their routine, they're doing everything, and now you shoot it and you got your master. And, because sometimes you pop to your master, and if they've done that at the beginning, they're pulling it from the first good take or whatever. Not everybody might not be in the same place or the right place. But anyway, so what I did was I was working with 8 cameras now, not 4.
So that was your call to
That
work
was
with
my
8.
call. And,
Okay.
And the producer actually called out the editor and said, "Don't do anything yet." And pulled out an editor and pulled him to the floor and said, "This is what Mack is doing." And she's like, "I love it." She says, "I can't believe, this is actually going to happen." So she went back and we sat in the edit. And, everybody, it hadn't been done before. And the editor, the producers are like, "So how is the edit going? Are you able to do it?" She's like, "Are you kidding me? Go ahead. Give me a problem. I'll be able to fix it because I've got 8 cameras here, not 4.
It sounds like you brought your own vision to
Yeah. Well, a
your
lot of that
projects.
helped by working with, a lot of different directors, and I've always, I went to bat a lot for Fred because, I was supposed to be working for the producers and I got that from time to time. I'm supposed to be very time conscious, There are a lot of aspects that the producer would really like the AD to kind of favor. And what that does, it kind of takes you a little bit away from helping that director be on the creative side. So when he's trying to get something, you're like, "Sorry, you don't have it. You got to go on," and scratch.
Did you have a good AD?
I did. I did. I worked with them all. And no, they were great.
But
I
you knew
enjoyed
what
working.
to expect. I mean, I would
I
think
knew
you'd
what
been
to
a hard
expect.
boss too, because you knew what they
No,
could do.
well, I got to tell you, the other thing, Karen Walker asked me to come into her office. She said, "So, how's the stress? How are you dealing with the stress?" I
Right.
said, "Stress? What stress?" She goes, "Well, isn't it more stressful being the director?" I said, "Are you kidding me? Nobody's pulling me into meetings telling me that I need to be, this and that and for their department." And, I said, when I was an AD, I had to fight for the directors. I said, now as I'm a director, this is my point of view. This is what I want to do. And yeah, there was some pushback at times, such as there was one of my shows. It was the cowboy one. I don't know the name of
The Wild West.
The Wild West. The Wild West.
With Riff.
With Riff.
Yeah.
And that was a fun one. That had some challenges. And one of the challenges was
I had to do some square dancing. I remember.
there were a lot of fun things. I mean, I really enjoyed that
See,
show.
it's funny when you say fun and
Yes,
square dancing in a big
Come on.
suit wasn't as much fun as you would imagine.
Come
but-
on, that looks great on camera, though.
Of course, it looks great, and you hear what would go on. There would be a lot of that going on. It's going to look great. I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to have to, so you'd have to and understand that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do this because I know how bad they want it, or this or that, and we were all dealing with that.
Yeah, and Carrie and I would sit there and chat. It's like, so this is what's involved, and he would say, well, let's maybe do this or that, or I'll give you,
Because some things are much harder than they look.
Yeah.
Which we appreciate. They go, "Oh, you make that look easy." Well, my goodness, I was doing this and this and that to make that happen. So.
Yeah, and all of us ADs at one point were asked to put the suit on so that we have a sense of
Really?
what it. Yeah, and I was.
What
that's where
was
I
it
went
like?
with-
Tell me what it felt like.
It was hot and costume. I was just, that was it. I was like, I can't do this. To walk around in that suit, how much does it weigh?
50.
Dry.
Yeah, 50.
50 pounds dry.
Yeah.
But you got to, and remember,
And it's all on your shoulders too.
and baby bopping them, I mean, it would just,
And theirs were lighter.
yes, but you had room in yours. he could pull his arms out and he could be in there and hang out inside. He could pull the teeth and there'd be that, that breath of fresh air.
But see, once again, and that's what I'm saying, there was no breath of fresh air.
Oh, yeah.
See, they all
Fresh
think,
air.
See, they
He
did.
turned his
they all think
fans
there was
on.
fans, there was breath of fresh air. The guy was kicking back,
None.
eating, right.
And he
eating
can sit.
Cheetos back
the,
there.
The other guys, I'm
having Oreos and milk and cookie,
but but there was a lot more room in yours than the other guys. There was.
Well, sure, but I had 50 pounds. I mean, we can go on. We all had our challenges with it. But that was something you would go through too, because at that point I'd been doing it for 10, 15 years. So you make things look easy. He's got another one.
So some of the challenges that was really as a director and as a AD, I kind of had to go to bat for myself a few times. And one of the challenges that we had in doing this show is it's in 140 some countries in all these different languages. So you can't do everything in English. And one of my challenges with this show was Baby Bop. She is the sheriff of this town, and nobody can sing but me is her line. Now, how do you convey that? Because you're going to do posters. You're going to do something up on the screen. You've got to do something, and you can't do it in all these different languages. And one of the things was, well, you have a musical note, one of the suggestions, and you put the big red circle and the line through it, but that's negative, and that really says no music. So how do you come across and say, and boy, we had, crews, everybody knew, the dilemma at hand, and all the department heads. I was hearing from, the prop department, what about this, what about that? But I came up with an idea, and I got a lot of pushback, and I was told my idea was not going to happen. But nobody else had a better idea. I was open for anything. I mean, that's the way we got, a lot of our work done in meetings. And anyway, so my idea was and Harry Potter had been out, and it was the posters, and the pictures, and they all moved.
Yes.
And I just thought, well, geez, I went to, special effects and the editor, and I said, what if we do this? What if Baby Bop, I do a poster, kind of like a wanted poster of Baby Bop. And she comes to life and says, hey, nobody can sing but me. And I said, that's the verbal. There's no letters. There's no, any of that involved. And they said, well, how do you propose to do that? And I said, well, I'll shoot Baby Bop, and we'll just go out, and she just looks at camera. I'm basically in the same position. And nobody sings but me. And she ends like that. And what we would do is here, I've got a poster. So this is the actual poster.
And describe this for those who aren't watching.
Right. So this is Baby Bop. She's dressed up as the sheriff. And so here she is.
How cute is that?
I know. Look, there's little chaps on her arms.
So it was on the set, and we had it in various places. And what I had were these kids come over, and they're sitting there talking, and I have them framing this, but they don't impose the frame. So in a sense, magic can do its, magic. So they'd be sitting there talking, and then what it was all the sparkle would happen. And what the sparkle did was cover up the fact that they took the frame, they took this little video clip, and behind the sparkle, they went to the beginning of the little video clip, and then it played out, and Baby Bop said, nobody can sing but me. And then it froze, and here's the last frame, and it's frozen.
And Nancy, we have it.
Oh, wow. Okay,
there it is.
let's take a look at this right this second.
But they can't because of her. Remember, nobody sings except me. Who's that? That's Bossy Bop. She won't let any.
Yeah.
And there's a Barney in the background playing a banjo. Who the heck was that?
Yeah, that was...
Carrie?
You had no idea.
I didn't know. I knew
told
you
was a
played the guitar.
musician.
I know. I thought, wow, you did able to.
I mentioned
do
the
that.
keyboards. I never mentioned I could
Never
play
mentioned
banjo.
the banjo.
too.
No
Yes.
kidding. Well, we'll make sure we have those pictures as well as the poster on purpletalespodcast.com.
Yeah,
so you want to look at that for sure.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, so that was one of the little things, but it turned out great, and we loved it. I mean, it was just, it was a lot of fun. That show, that had its challenges.
Well, and my favorite was the France show that you directed.
France?
France.
We went to France
Yes.
We in Carrollton. We went to Fred's.
Carrollton.
Well, it was that whole season. It was, the go-to, the travel.
Travel.
The travel.
Yeah.
And I love that because, and again, look, the other directors did their thing. But what they would do is the travel book would sparkle on. And again, so what I was doing is because of my background in special effects within film and commercials, because there was a lot of that. And so I came in with this, vast knowledge.
Yes, you did. Yes, you
So
did.
anyway,
Brian.
so this was a lot of fun. So I had this opportunity to play, and especially since it was mine. So what I did is I set a camera up, and I put the book. Well, I took the book out, and I got the shot, and then I put the book in and brought the kids in, and so they started the scene. So I started shooting the scene with the 3 cameras. The 4th one was just locked off, nobody touching it. And then Barney would get to the part of, well, let's, and he would go and sparkle on.
I do not.
So I would go.
But hopefully Dean would. See, remember, I didn't have to say them.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So we cut to that camera, and Barney in the background would sparkle on the book, and then he'd walk up and they'd interact with the book. And that was, it was easy. It was fun, and to me, it just added another layer. But yeah, with Barney.
Those travel ones were fun.
Oh, yeah. No, and that was some good music. And so we did, China? We had an elephant.
Yeah. Spain,
on the
we
set.
had a horse.
Yeah, Doug Terranova brought us all of our animals, and he was that was amazing to have, an elephant.
Animals on the set.
And one day we had penguins. You'd be sitting at your desk, and there'd be a penguin walking through, and there was no penguin in the shot, and just somebody brought a penguin along with the other animals.
A real penguin?
A real penguin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, we had all kinds of animals.
yeah, at some point, Barney had seen it all.
Yeah.
Telling us about what you had to do, and obviously your background helped because you had all another vision.
Yeah.
Would it be easier today, though, with the CGI and all that, or is there something
I think so.
about this that's
No,
even
there
better?
would be. I think a lot of the way, I'm not going to get into that. It was old school, some of it, and they moved in.
It was an old school time, too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think with today's technology, you could go in there and you wouldn't have to clear everybody out. A lot of times, when we shot green screen, and you were just, the special effects, there was a lot of it.
Yeah.
But also, you were kind of limited because I think a lot of it was a time factor, because when we started out, we had a week per show. Mm-hmm. And when I finished up, I think we had 3 days. We'd go in on a Monday and we rehearsed with all the kids. And then we went right into shooting. And those kids,
You
to
worked
take a
with,
script.
And you worked with some of the more famous kids, Selena Gomez,
Yes.
Demi Lovato.
So the funny thing about Selena, Demi was good. Selena was one of my favorites. So Selena, there were times when I'd be looking out there and we saw it in the edit. She would be telling the other kids their line. Now, these scripts are, 50, 55 pages.
Right.
And not only are they memorizing, she's memorizing her lines, but she's got everybody else's memorized. And on top of that, the dance moves and where to go and this and that. So if there was, a little dead moment, and everybody looking at their script because they might not be following in the script, they're watching the monitor, and they're like, well, where are we? What's going on? Who's missing what? And Selena would be out there. You could see her lips move a little bit, and she'd be telling Joey, and she'd be telling Joey her line. I was like, Selena, we can see your lips move. And then she'd do it again. And she had a good point. She told me, she's like, look, he's not doing it. So if he's not doing it, it's no good anyway. So I might as well tell him.
And how old was she telling you that?
It was at the beginning, towards
Right.
the beginning. So what? She was
8, 9?
8, 9. And she had everything. The whole thing. And she'd be sitting there. She would, she'd be giving them stage direction as well. Now that was great from my point of view because it moved things along. And sometimes, it would, you could cover it up in the edit. But there were other times when I was like, Selena, she give me that sheep grin. And she was great. But to sit there and these kids memorize these scripts, I couldn't do it. I tried. There was a show and I tried to take somebody's part and memorize it. And I couldn't. I had too much other stuff
But
going
I
on.
love that you did. You put the suit on. You tried to memorize the line. You tried to be part? I mean, you were, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
you were able to relate to everyone.
Well, you're asking these people to do stuff that, the one thing you don't want to hear from an actor, is like, you do this. If you think it's so easy, you come out here and do it. Selena actually came up and we were doing a little break. I don't know whose department we were waiting on, whether it was props, lighting, But Selena came up and she's like, Mr. Mack, I can do your job. And I said, oh yeah? And she took my glasses and she put them on and she started flipping through my script and she started telling the camera guys, who they're going to be covering and this and that. She's like, and Mr. Mack, you go out and you be me. I wish I had done that. I was like, absolutely not. I'm not going to go out and play a 9-year-old little girl. But that would have been fun.
But what
that would have been a lot of fun.
She was brilliant even then.
She was.
Yeah.
She was always.
my.
She knew the stage direction and what was going on and the purpose behind it all. And there were some kids that didn't get it. There were times when, like this, I won't put them out there, but there was one kid where you just had to So you just do the countdown and in hopes that he was walking around, everybody else was in their place, and that he was going to come swing back around, and by the time you counted down and it was action time, he was going to be in a spot going. And, you can't go to the parents. The parents had enough on their plate. And as a matter of fact, sometimes we were telling parents, one of the kids would come in and they would act a certain way. And you're like, why are you doing that? We're doing it this way. He's like, well, my mom told me to do it this way. It's like, no, but your mom doesn't know what's going on in the scene,
But see, for the dinos, we knew they were kids.
Yeah.
So we never had a problem if they messed up takes or whatever because they're kids and they're doing the best they can.
And they
Now,
had a lot on there.
If he messed up
Did
something.
you ever see Brian yell?
No, I wasn't.
No,
I wasn't.
this was such a loving understanding. I mean, he's talking about some of the challenges, but everyone was working for the same mission and to make the best show, and there was just a lot of pressure on things. But people didn't yell. People
No,
didn't.
I would go up and what I would do is talk with somebody, and it's kind of like And if a producer came up to me and was like, well, so-and-so is really an issue, I was like, well, then don't use them next time, and they'll get the idea. Because that's the way it is in film business. Everything's a one-off. You're only as good as your last one. But these kids, and you didn't want to get on the kids, you couldn't come down on them because they're fragile. They've got enough to worry about with the script and everything. And if you come down hard on them, little kids, they might be already having a bad day. And all of a sudden, now it's, okay, now we got to take a kid break till Joey calms down and stops crying. And then makeup touches them back up. So you've got to watch that. Now, the crew, you can't yell at the crew either because that doesn't help. And they know what's going on. They know the problem before I do.
Right.
Of course. Sure.
So they're already on it. So what am I going to do? It's like, what do you mean that light went out? I don't need to tell them to fix it. There's already a ladder out there.
Right.
With your amazing background and all the names and people you've worked with, though, what was it like to tell your friends, hey, what are you doing now, Mac? I'm doing Barney.
Well, so to them, it was kind of a kid's show. And they were just like, really? But the film community, they were all behind it. They were just like, oh, man, any chance you can get me on it? Because it was long format. When you do the long format, that's what everybody kind of wanted to get on, that steady gig. Because when you're on a commercial, and my dad always gave me a hard time about film. But I loved it. And he understood, and he actually came to town and he was on one of the commercial shoots and he saw it. And my in-laws and my kids, my both boys were on Barney as extras out in the park. They got it. They loved it. And they, they're the only ones that really, to everybody else. I'd get people were really amazed. They're like, really? That's really cool. But the film people were just, I know you're on it. Can you get me on it? But it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
What are you doing today?
So Barney, we knew Barney was coming to an end. And they're really, in this town, it's kind of changed, unfortunately, to where, there's not a lot of those movies, television shows coming through, not like they used to be. I mean, the 90s were full of films, and Walker, Texas Ranger seemed to be around forever. And, there have been a few other projects that come to. Anyway, for me, it was 3 kids, a house, private school. So To go back out into the commercial world and fight for commercials, because every new commercial, when it ended, my dad would be like, all right, so what's next? I'd be like, I don't know. He'd be like, when are you going to get what's your next job? I was like, could be tomorrow, could be next week, could be a month from now. He's like, how are you going to do that?
Right.
And that's what people are struggling with that today.
I mean, we all do that as
absolutely.
freelancers,
We all
photographers,
do,
and so on.
absolutely.
Yes.
It's a true love to be in the film business, because one day you're sitting on your couch and the next day you're working out there and you've got Tiger Woods right in front of you, and you're working with him. It is too cool. That's the thing that I loved. You never knew who you were going to be working with next. I mean, just the array of talent that I've worked with, and I could sit here and drop names all day long, and it was just. That was what I loved, and the creativity and the film family in this town. It is too neat. Where else do you get to the opportunity to go to, Cape Town, South Africa for 10 days and do a Nestea commercial? And, that was always a lot of fun. But when you got home and the bills needed to be paid. So what I started looking for is, so I've got a lot of friends in real estate. And the housing market in Dallas-Fort Worth is just one of the strongest in the country. And it's been that way, and it's just been growing. And I had the opportunity to work with somebody that I went to college, same college as I did, Spring Hill College down in Mobile, Alabama. And they had a franchise of this moving company. And no, I'm not going to give them any love. But I worked with them. What I was doing was looking to maybe open a franchise.
But you learn from the people you work with.
Oh, you bet.
Would you see you did that too with the directors?
So you go in and you really, and I started to put together a business plan, and I thought, is this a viable option? Because a lot of my other friends, they were getting out of the film. Ken Weber,
Yep.
Vintage Martini, a great clothing store.
I've just been looking at that. Seriously.
That's too cool. So that's Ken.
Ken was part of Barney?
Oh, absolutely. For a long time. And I just did a fashion show deal with Ken.
Okay.
So
wow.
I just saw
got
Ken a
these
couple
people-
weeks, a month ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We're trying to get a little happy hour to get.
I know.
Oh, boy. Okay.
So we still stay connected and everything. And then Terry Madison, Mr. Postman.
Yep.
He's got his little post office up there off of Preston and Frankfurt. Give him a little bit of love.
Yeah.
But anyway, so, what we started doing, but a lot of the family stuck with it, and they are still in film.
Okay.
Being commercials or other projects. And we're all connected, and, but anyway, so what I did was this moving company, and I started looking into it, and I had a mentor. I had a couple of mentors. And so what I did was I went and I did not open a franchise of that moving company. It's a national chain. What I did was I went out and I did it on my own. I didn't want corporate. I didn't want anybody looking over my shoulder.
You've already been the boss. See, you know what that. I have this. Why do I think this fits you completely?
So I went and I started my own.
Could it be Red Carpet Movers?
Red Carpet Movers. So it's a little homage to what I used to do. Red Carpet of Hollywood, worked there enough, and Red Carpet Service. So, our reviews are awesome. It's great. It's going out there. And a lot of these people, I'll go to these customers' houses. And I had one the other day, and, this big old house. She had kids, and everybody's running around, and this big 2-truck move. And she says, she looks at me, and I will put myself on the crew with a crew shirt. I work with my crews to make sure everything is going fine. We've got great reviews because I look to hiring, people who care. But yet I still get this every so often. A customer will say, "You're not a mover, are you? You're the owner." And you're like, "What?" She's like, "Your attitude, this and that." And like, did you always do this? And sometimes customers strike up a conversation with me. And be like, "No, I used to be in film and television." Well, anything I would have seen, and the only thing I popped to is Barney. I was one of the directors on Barney, and it gives me oh my word, our kids love it. I was working on a project with Dean.
Yeah.
With Carrie, and we were on a set, and had a bunch of extras, and they struck up a conversation with me as I was standing there having a conversation with them about the camera, but we were waiting on lighting. And they said, "So what do you do? How did you get into film?" And I said, "Well, I came with my background." And I said, "I used to do Barney." Like, "You're kidding me." And the mom pointed at their son, who was about 21 years of age, and was like, loved. And even his brothers and sisters sitting at the table were like, he's a huge fan. And I said, really? I said, come on. And he's like, no. He says, I was a pretty big fan. He says, I really got into Barney. I was like, well, hold on. And I said, Carrie, come on over here. And I said, Carrie. And I don't do this very often unless it's a huge fan that I find. And I said, so Carrie here, he was Barney. And their whole family, their eyes lit up. And Carrie was just, really gracious about it. And he asked for an autograph and sat there, and it was a time you find them every so often, the biggest fan. But, for instance, once I was with this, we were doing this big old move, and I had 4 guys with me, and the family had kids. And they were, Mac, and they'd usually do this. They're like, Mac, I bet $10 they're not Barney fans. I was like, so I struck up a conversation with Mom. I was like, so you got kids? I've got kids. What are their favorite shows? And so she went through this whole array of shows, and Barney wasn't listed. And I said, not Barney? My kids love Barney. And she's like, oh, I don't, and she went into the music and, all the things of the adults. And I said, well, ma'am, we don't produce it for the parents. She's like, well, I don't care, this and that. So then she came back, and she gave it about 30 minutes. And she came back to me and she says, what did you mean when you said we don't produce it? And I said, we don't. I said, I'm one of the directors. She's like, you're kidding me. And I said, no. And she apologized. She was, can I take any of that back? And I said, not a word.
It's been so cool with this show. We've been getting letters. We had one on, I wish I could remember his name. And he said, after listening to your show and understanding about what you all were doing, I get it.
And the work.
I get it now.
The work that went behind it. But you touch it. It spans the globe. And my favorite story was that the one kid over there was Ireland, and he was. Oh yeah. We got the letters and everything, and he was either about to die or he had died.
Yeah, he had passed away.
He had passed away, and so what we were doing was somebody had the idea, and they sent us a script to do a little bit of a video. Kind of, with Barney talking and giving, props to him and kind of like a goodbye. And then we sent it over to him. Mm-hmm. And then it was all written up in the newspapers. The small town that he was in Ireland came out, and it was everybody dressed up in the Barney colors. His casket was Barney colors.
Oh, my.
I mean, he was an absolute, big, big fan.
Well, so, Brian, in summary, what is your takeaway from your years with Barney?
I wish I had shown up to set every day with a camera and videotape. I do. I did that one time. I showed up with a video, and I've got to find the footage. But the cameras, and really, if anything, now I tell my kids, look, man, whatever situation you find yourself in, really just soak it up, because you just, later on down the line, you won't realize just how significant this whole deal is until later on when it's all gone and everybody's walked out the door. And
there's a podcast.
And now there's a podcast in which we go back and relive it. But no, it's awesome. And I really wish that, PBS, it was still on PBS. But you can find it.
You never know what may transpire.
I think we do.
In the days and the weeks ahead. Well, we've got your number if we need a director.
Absolutely.
Did we do okay as a director? Did this seem to flow okay?
Absolutely.
I'm going to have to make my way back. I've got so many more stories.
Please
come back.
Return.
Oh, yeah.
And as we say goodbye, just put that up. Just show that. We've got some more pictures, you guys. Make sure you go to purpletalespodcast.com, and you'll get to see all sorts of fun stuff. Oh,
I ended up with and stage B. These were the 2 that were hanging out each stage.
It looks just like you, Gary.
Yes.
Yeah.
It does.
But anyway, everybody got their little bits of memorabilia, I'm sure. But
Brian Mack, thank you
Thank you, Brian.
much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. And Nancy,
Thank you for having me.
Boy, do I have a story for you next week.
I can't wait. I don't know if it'll top anything that Brian's told us, but you're going to have to try.
Yeah, I got a big one next week.
Okay, we'll see.